by saying that actually this was, I don't know, inspired isn't quite the right word, but Kelly's last talk, he mentioned something with regard to one of the versions of this koan, and this is the one I thought of. So somehow it was rolling around in the back of my head since his talk. So I'll hopefully maybe build on Choa's last talk. So this is case 26, and the title is Two Monks Roll Up the Blinds. A monk once went to Daihogen of Syria before the midday meal to ask for instruction. Gen pointed to the bamboo blinds with his hand. At that moment, two monks went over to the blinds and rolled them up in an identical manner. Gen said, "One has gained, one has lost." So I'll read Mumon's commentary right now. I'm going to save the verse for a little bit later. Just tell me which one has gained and which one has lost. If you have one eye opened concerning this point, you will know where national teacher Siryu failed. Nevertheless, you should inquire into this problem in connection with gain or loss. So I wanted to read you just a little bit about this, the master in this case, just by a little bit of way of background. So Master Hogen, or Hogen Bunake of Syrio Monastery, was the founder of the Hogen sect. Literally, Hogen means great Dharma eye. His name is a Zen master. He was the fifth descendant of Master Tokusan, who's a very, very important master in our lineage. And the only other Hogen I've ever known was, I think this guy, he was from Denmark or the Netherlands. But the thing I remember about him at Zen Mountain Center was he did a somersault into the Ryoban. So he was being very kind of cavalier, which didn't really go over very well in the formal setting of things. So how I was actually, the kind of as I read into this in the last 24 hours or so, really was feeling this was richer and richer of an experience for me around this koan, and I hope so for you as well. I'll send this link to Choa afterwards, I'm curious, possibly Diana would know this person, but I listened to a talk by a woman named Zuise from Zen Mountain Monastery, and I thought it was really important, so I'm going to pose this question in the beginning as we're kind of exploring the talk together, or exploring the koan together, is how does this question help me live my life? How do I use this as I'm living my everyday life? So that's always where we would want to come back to in our reflection about a teaching or a koan or any kind of instruction. So the koan is instruction in this way. And how I was feeling it was kind of like an upside down triangle, where there were all kinds of thoughts, reflections, metaphors that came to mind, sort of in the dynamics of the setting. And then it just became more and more narrow and refined in terms of what's really the point here. So I think many of you will know, and maybe some won't, just in terms of if you have or have not worked on koans, and it's just, any of this is always a good refresher for all of us, right? To me, anyway. Hope you won't take offense. But just as a reminder, we look at every entity, every person, everything in the koan, and put ourselves in that position. So for me, I'm not quite sure why, but where I kept seeing this scene happening was in the Dokusan room at Zen Mountain Center, and maybe just because I spent a lot of time there. in my life. And and so just like starting to look at just what the setup of the koan is. So a monk comes for instruction. And what's so kind of fascinating is on one level, we can't know exactly what's going on, right? Because we're not there, we're not in this scene at that time. But we can use our imagination to put ourselves into it. So somebody's coming forward wanting instruction. And the teacher's there. We don't know the extent of, is this something they do on a daily basis? Is this something they do on a weekly basis? What's the context? Or if there's some specific question that's come up. It was curious to me because in another interpretation of the koan, it says it's before the noonday meal. So it seemed almost like it was kind of out of context of not like in the, coming in Doksan line during a retreat or something like that. So that's kind of a question mark in my mind of what was the context in which the monk is coming for the instruction. And then obviously there's two other people in the room too besides the teacher. And so kind of putting ourselves in the position of all of those people. So coming for instruction, whatever your anticipation about that, whatever's brewing in your heart and mind that you're wanting help with. And then there's some of your Dharma siblings there that happen to be in the room for whatever reason as well. And what's that relationship? And then something that was said about Hogan that I've heard before, not necessarily attributed to a specific teacher, but it's a great visual, is that he was known for his skill in guiding disciples. And specifically, I'll just read this part. I know it, but I don't want to misspeak the words. So in Japanese, his method is called Soku Taku Doji, translated as simultaneously pecking and picking. So how I've always heard that in the past is that if you imagine a chick in an egg, and that the chick is pecking from the inside to get out. So to get out to what, right? To wake up, to be born, and the teacher is pecking from the outside in, and that when these two things are happening simultaneously, it opens up. The egg opens up, and the chick is safely hatched. So Hogan is known for his skill in guiding students in this way. Thought of something else with regard to that, but it just went in and out. Oh, I've also heard the phrase that the teacher is looking at everybody as a baby Buddha. So all of us are in the egg and pecking, and all of us are on the outside pecking to help one another too. So kind of putting ourselves in the middle of that whole situation, there's so many dynamics that come up, right? And especially with the terms gain and loss, or right and wrong, or somebody has it and somebody doesn't have it. And my experience is the practice environment is in no way shy of the same types of competitiveness, judgment, feeling less than, feeling more than we experience in life overall. And in some ways we live in a culture where we're very much, or if you, living in the culture in the United States is very much of a culture that fosters that kind of competitiveness. And the practice environment, in my experience, is not devoid of that by any stretch of the imagination. So on one level, there's this kind of superficial aspect of even though the blinds were rolled up identically, somehow somebody did it in a more enlightened way than somebody else. And that, to me, it reminds me of, I really honestly had this view that my first teacher was Maizumi Roshi, and that he could kind of see who had the magic fairy dust and who didn't, almost like he had infrared vision. And he could see who really had potential in practice and who didn't. And so on the surface of it, it's like, oh, well, the teacher can see who's, really one with the activity and who isn't. I think that's a pretty it's a really limited view of the koan in my mind, but it's a way in which we can very much relate to it too. And really thinking about Hogan in that situation and pecking from the inside and pecking from the outside, to see doubt in the whole situation, who could really gain, who is doing it right, who is doing it wrong, where is the gain and where is the loss in this. So, kind of fundamental to our Mahayana practice is everything whole and complete as it is, as we are right now, from the beginningless beginning and the endless end. So how could there be loss and gain? And is that not just our doubt and insecurity we bring to the situation? And is that what Hogan is pointing out right now? Is he raising a straw dog to say one gains and one loses? I think that's, in my mind, that's one legitimate way to look at what's going on. So I want to read you the verse now, because to me it starts to filter that down. When the blind is rolled up, brightness and clarity. When the blind is rolled up, brightness and clarity penetrates the great empty space. Yet the great empty space is still not according to the principle of our sept. It is far better to throw away emptiness and everything completely, and with a tight fit, never let the wind pass through. With a tight fit, never let the wind pass through. So is it possible to consider that loss and gain are two sides of the same coin? What are we losing and what are we gaining? And are they part of the same thing? So I remember in these, in the commentary, Yamada's commentary with the gateless gate, it seems like many times he talks about the denominator is always zero. So the denominator being zero is emptiness, right? But like we chant all the time from the, really like this translation from CCLA with the Heart of the Perfection of Great Wisdom Sutra. So the Heart Sutra. And the heart of the Heart Sutra, as I think we all know, is form is emptiness and emptiness is form. So that's the zero denominator. So if we look at the possibility that gain and loss are two sides of the same coin, all, so to speak, arising from emptiness, still awkward language, still nothing but emptiness. So in the context of the verse, it seems to me that gain, the opening of the one Dharma eye, is seeing into that unconditioned, unfixed basic nature of reality that we live all the time, exactly what we live all the time. And the loss is our ideas and notions and preferences about it being something other than that. So, rolling the blind up, seeing through, seeing clearly, rolling the blind up, completely losing our ideas about ourselves, how our life should be. Just, what the Buddha said, that it's our clinging and aversion that causes us to suffer. So is it possible that gain and loss are the same thing, have the same root? So I wanted to read you we try to do a practice in town on a monthly basis. A friend of mine who's a yoga teacher and I get together, team up, and we do a morning of yoga and mindfulness, yoga and meditation. And we had it yesterday, and dedicated it to Thich Nhat Hanh in kind of respect and appreciation for his practice in life. And so we dedicated the morning to being peace. And I just wanted to share this quote, and I invite you to experiment with, when he's saying mindfulness, that idea of loss and gain, or the unity of loss and gain. With mindfulness, you can establish yourself in the present in order to touch the wonders of life that are available in that moment. When you are mindful, you are fully alive. When you're just one with that loss and gain, you are fully present. You can get in touch with the wonders of life that can nourish you and heal you. And you are stronger. You are more solid in order to handle the suffering inside of you and around you. When you are mindful, you can recognize, embrace, and handle the pain, the sorrow in you and around you, to bring you relief. And if you continue with concentration and insight, you'll be able to transform the suffering inside and help transform the suffering around you. So, sometimes the language of mindfulness is criticized, or, not, well, that's kind of not quite Zen. Thich Nhat Hanh was a Zen teacher. And it seems to me that this quote really embodies this letting go of all the thoughts and ideas and the sense of loss and gain, and really wholly being present as we are. And there's a to me, the end of it is such a kind of inspiration, little bit of a push, little bit of a poke, prod maybe is a better word, encouragement. And if you continue with concentration and insight, that's our commitment to practice, to keep on going. If you continue with concentration and insight, you'll be able to transform the suffering inside and help transform the suffering around you. And not that it goes away, Susan and I were talking earlier this week about how Zen teachers suffer. Zen teachers have their personality, they have their conditioning, and that doesn't go away. It's how we work with it. And as I do feel that as we develop the confidence that we can stay with what's happening, it does loosen up some, and we do get some ability to make choice about how much to suffer with it. And sometimes the suffering with it is completely suffer, just completely grieve, just completely hurt, just completely be sad, and see where that takes us. I think Herb's here, and you know, he's always kind of used the phrase "sit with it." So, just kind of one more, maybe a little bit more a superficial aspect, could be viewed as such, but so kind of relevant at the same time to our everyday experiences, is our own Hogan standing there saying about our behavior, how am I doing it? You got it. You lost it. You did well. You screwed up. You have it. You don't have it. And our own, sense of wanting approval either from ourselves or the outside, or our own self-criticism and self-degradation, which is all forms of self-cleaning, are all forms of self-cleaning. And some of us are more familiar with one side than the other, but we all know them. And so that's also putting ourselves in that room as those characters. How do I do that? So in terms of bringing it into our daily life, how do I be whole and complete with what I'm doing, and also mess up? And that's part of being human. I do think there is an aspect of that sort of bigger part of the triangle that is around, there is a thing about doing things well. There is a thing about paying attention to how the blinds are rolled up. There is that aspect of life. There is no way around cause and effect. So to put ourselves into doing things as well as possible, that's admirable. And at the same time, we're not going to be perfect. So loss and gain do exist. And that's where the kind of form is emptiness, emptiness is form. I could say not on the biggest level, but yes, on the biggest level, because they're not separate. So I think I'm going to stop.